Amahle's heels shattered against the cobblestones as she sprinted through the alley, her breath tearing from her lungs in ragged bursts. Behind her, 3 shadows moved fast, boots slapping wet pavement, voices low and clipped in Korean she barely understood but instinctively feared. "Don't let her reach the street," one of them barked. She didn't look back. Looking back cost seconds she didn't have. Her dress, once elegant black silk, now hung torn at the shoulder, exposing a bruise blooming purple beneath her collarbone. She'd gotten that from the man who grabbed her 20 minutes ago, right before she elbowed him in the throat and ran. Ahead, a door, gold light spilling from it, bass thumping through the walls. Club Obsidian. She didn't think. She shoved through the service entrance, stumbled past startled staff, and burst into the VIP lounge like a woman who'd crawled out of her own grave. Every head turned. Amahle's eyes scanned wildly. Bodyguards near the entrance, cameras, exits, until they landed on him. Kang Tae-jun sat alone at the center table, a glass of untouched whiskey in front of him, his expression unreadable, dangerous in its stillness. Even sitting, he radiated the kind of authority that made grown men lower their eyes. She didn't know who he was. She only knew that everyone around him looked terrified to even breathe wrong. That was enough. She crossed the room in 3 strides, dropped into the seat beside him, grabbed his tie, and pulled him close enough that her voice came out as barely more than a broken whisper. "Please, pretend I'm yours tonight." Tae-jun's dark eyes flicked to her face, the fear in it, the blood on her lip, the way her hands trembled around the silk of his tie, and something in him shifted, though his face didn't show it. The 3 men burst through the entrance seconds later, scanning the room, until their eyes locked onto Amahle. They started forward. Tae-jun raised one hand, not even standing, and the room went silent. "That's far enough," he said quietly, but the words cut through the music like a blade. The men froze. One of them recognized him. She saw it happen, saw the color drain from his face. "Boss Kang," the man stammered. "We didn't know she's mine," Tae-jun said, his arm sliding around Amahle's shoulders like they'd done this 100 times before. "Which means whatever business you had with her just became my business. Do you want that?" Silence. "No, sir," the man said, bowing sharply. "Apologies, Boss Kang." They retreated so fast, one of them nearly tripped over a chair. The moment the door shut behind them, Amahle's whole body sagged, the adrenaline draining out of her in one violent wave. Her hands were still shaking. She realized, distantly, that she was still holding his tie. She let go immediately. I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. You picked the most dangerous man in this building," Tae-jun said, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "That was either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both," she said, voice cracking. He didn't smile, but something in his eyes softened, just slightly. "Who were they?" Amahle hesitated, trusting a stranger, especially one who apparently commanded fear with a single raised hand, felt like walking further into the fire she'd just escaped. But she had nowhere else to go. "I don't know exactly," she admitted, "but I think it has to do with my uncle. His shipping company. I found records, documents that shouldn't exist. Money moving through accounts that were supposed to be closed years ago." Tae-jun's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. "What kind of accounts?" "Ledgers," she said. "Old ones. My father built the original system before he died. I recognized his handwriting in the digitized files." The whiskey glass in front of Tae-jun sat forgotten. For the first time all night, real interest flickered behind his eyes. Not the polite, distant interest of a man doing a stranger a favor, but something sharper, personal. "Your father's name," he said slowly. "What was it?" "Sifo," she whispered. "Sifo Dlamini." Tae-jun went very still. "Say that again," he said. "Sifo Dlamini," Amahle repeated, confused by the sudden change in him. "Why? Do you know that name?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for his whiskey, drank the entire glass in one motion, and set it down with a controlled precision that told her he was buying time to think. "That name," he finally said, "is the reason half the men in this city are still alive, and the other half wish they weren't." If this story already has you leaning in, go ahead and hit subscribe now. This one only gets more intense from here. And drop a comment telling me where you think this is headed. Let's keep going. Amahle felt the floor tilt beneath her. What does that mean? Tae-jun leaned closer, his voice low. It means, Miss Dlamini, that you didn't just stumble into my club by accident tonight. Someone sent those men after you because of what your father built. And now that you're sitting at my table, they're going to assume you're protected by the Kang family. Am I? She breathed. His eyes held hers, unblinking. That depends on what you tell me next. Amahle's throat went dry. She glanced toward the door, half expecting the men to burst back in, half expecting Tae-jun himself to be the greater threat. I don't know anything else, she said. I swear. I found the ledgers 3 days ago while going through my uncle's office in Johannesburg. I flew here because I thought if I could find the original firm my father worked with, someone could explain what I was looking at. I didn't think anyone would try to kill me for it. They weren't trying to kill you, Tae-jun said flatly. If they wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. They were trying to take you somewhere quiet. The words landed like ice water down her spine. That's supposed to make me feel better? It should, he said. It means whoever sent them wants information from you first, which means you have time. Not much, but some. A waiter approached cautiously, and Tae-jun dismissed him with a single look before he could speak. The lounge had gone quieter, the other guests pointedly not looking in their direction. Conversations dropped to murmurs. Why did you help me? Amahle asked suddenly. You didn't know me. You could have let them drag me out. Tae-jun considered the question longer than she expected. Your father saved my mother's life once, long before I was born into any of this. I don't forget debts like that. Something in his voice, a flicker of old grief, quickly buried, told her there was more to that story than he was willing to give her tonight. So this is a debt, she said, not a choice. Does it matter? It matters to me, she snapped, some of her fire returning, despite the exhaustion dragging at her bones. I don't want to be a transaction. I've spent my whole life being handed off, first to my uncle after my father died, then to men who thought a woman alone in Johannesburg was easy prey. I'm tired of being handled. For the first time, Tae-jun's expression cracked into something almost like respect. Fair enough. Then let's call it this. I'm choosing to protect you. Not because of a debt, because whoever's hunting you is connected to people I've been trying to dismantle for 2 years. You're valuable to me for reasons beyond your father's ghost. That's not exactly comforting either, she muttered. It wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be honest. Before she could respond, the door to the lounge opened again. This time slower, more deliberate. A tall man in an immaculate gray suit stepped through, flanked by 2 bodyguards. Tae-jun's entire posture changed, shoulders squaring, jaw setting like stone. Tae-jun, the man said smoothly, eyes sweeping over Amahle with open calculation. I didn't expect to find you entertaining tonight. Director O, Tae-jun said, voice devoid of warmth. This isn't your territory. Everything in Seoul is my territory when it concerns the Yoon family's interests. O replied, stepping closer. And I believe the woman beside you has something that belongs to us. Amahle's pulse spiked. She fought to keep her face neutral, but her hands curled into fists beneath the table. She has nothing that belongs to anyone but herself, Tae-jun said. And she's under my protection now. I'd think carefully before you say anything else in this room. O's smile didn't waver, but something calculating passed behind his eyes. Careful, Tae-jun. Sentiment has never suited your family. Your father would be disappointed to see you playing hero for a stranger. My father, Tae-jun said quietly, isn't here. I am. The tension in the room stretched taut enough to snap. For a long moment, no one moved. Then O laughed, a short, humorless sound, and inclined his head. Enjoy your evening then. But know this. The ledgers her father built don't just implicate my organization. They implicate people far more dangerous than either of us. If she has copies, I'd advise handing them over before this becomes a war neither of you can survive. He turned and left, his bodyguards trailing silently behind him. The moment the door shut, Amahle exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Copies, she said shakily. I do have copies. On a drive. I hid it before I left Johannesburg. Tae-jun's eyes sharpened. Where? Somewhere safe, she said carefully. I'm not telling you that yet. A ghost of something like amusement crossed his face. Smart. I'd have been disappointed if you'd told me immediately. This isn't a game, she said, voice cracking with sudden emotion. My father is dead because of whatever's in those ledgers. My mother won't speak about it. My uncle's been lying to me my entire life. And now I'm sitting in a club in Seoul, being threatened by men in suits who talk about war like it's a business meeting. Tae-jun's expression shifted, the coldness receding, replaced by something quieter, steadier. Then let me be clear with you, Amahle Dlamini. From this moment, you are not alone in this. Whatever happens next, you fight it with me beside you, not behind you. Her eyes stung, exhaustion and fear finally catching up to her all at once. Why does that terrify me more than the men chasing me? Because, he said softly, you're starting to trust me. And trust, in this world, is far more dangerous than a knife. If you're enjoying this so far, tap that like button. It genuinely helps this story reach more people. And let me know in the comments, do you think Tae-jun is telling her the full truth? Let's continue. 3 days passed in Tae-jun's penthouse before the next storm broke. Amahle had barely slept, jumping at every sound, replaying Oh's threat over and over in her mind. Tae-jun had assigned 2 guards to the residence and personally checked in every evening, though their conversations had grown longer, quieter, edged with something neither of them named aloud. Tonight, he found her standing at the window, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the city lights like they might swallow her whole. You should be resting, he said, closing the door behind him. I can't, she admitted. Every time I close my eyes, I see my father's handwriting in those ledgers. I keep wondering what he knew, what he was protecting, what got him killed. Tae-jun moved to stand beside her, close enough that she felt the warmth of him even without touching. Tell me about him. She hesitated, then let the words spill out. How her father had been an accountant in Johannesburg, quiet, meticulous, gone every few months on trips he never explained. How he died in what the police called a robbery gone wrong when she was 14. How her mother had never once cried in front of her, only grown colder, more distant, like grief had hollowed her into someone else entirely. I always thought it was random, Amahle whispered. Just bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time. But it wasn't, was it? No, Tae-jun said gently. It wasn't. Then tell me, she said, turning to face him, eyes blazing despite the tears gathering there. Tell me what you know. I'm done being protected from the truth. I need to understand what he died for. Tae-jun studied her for a long moment, weighing something behind his eyes. Finally, he spoke. Your father didn't just build a ledger system. He built a system that tracked money moving between 4 criminal organizations, mine included, back when my father ran things his way. It was meant to create balance. Accountability. No one organization could cheat another without every other faction knowing. It kept the peace for almost a decade. So why kill him? Because Director Oh's father wanted to break that balance. He wanted total control, and your father's system was the only thing standing in his way. When your father refused to help him rig the ledgers, they made it look like a robbery. Tae-jun's voice hardened. It wasn't the only life it cost. My mother tried to protect the ledger's location. That's the debt I mentioned. She paid for it with years of house arrest under my father's roof. Watched every day for the rest of her life. Amahle's breath caught. She's still alive? Barely, he said. She rarely leaves her room anymore. The fear never left her. The weight of it all pressed down on Amahle like a physical thing. So the drive I have, it's not just financial records. It's proof. It's a weapon, Tae-jun corrected. One that could dismantle Oh's entire operation. And mine, if it fell into the wrong hands. Which is exactly why he wants it destroyed. Her hands trembled. What do I do? You give me the location, Tae-jun said. Let me protect it properly. Let me end this. Amahle searched his face, torn between the fierce trust that had grown between them and the ingrained instinct to protect herself, to never fully hand her fate to someone else again. If I give this to you, she said slowly, and it destroys your organization too, will you still protect me? Tae-jun didn't hesitate. Yes, even if it costs you everything? Especially then. The certainty in his voice undid something in her. Before she could stop herself, she closed the distance between them, and he met her halfway. Not with hesitation, but with the same fierce intensity he'd shown from the moment she'd grabbed his tie 3 nights ago. The kiss was desperate, layered with fear and relief, and something neither of them had planned for. When they broke apart, breathless, Amahle pressed her forehead to his. This wasn't supposed to happen. No, Tae-jun agreed. It wasn't. His phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered sharply, listened, and Amahle watched the color drain from his face in real time. When? He demanded. A pause. Where? He hung up, jaw tight, eyes suddenly cold with fury. What is it? Amahle asked, dread pooling in her stomach. Oh's men found your apartment in Johannesburg, Tae-jun said. Your mother was there. Amahle's world tilted violently. What happened to her? She's alive, he said quickly. But they took her. They're using her to force your hand. The room spun. They want the drive. They want you to come get her, Tae-jun said grimly. In person. Alone. Then I'm going, Amahle said instantly, already moving toward the door. Tae-jun caught her arm, turning her to face him. That's exactly what they want. It's a trap. She's my mother, Amahle said, voice breaking. I don't have a choice. You do, he said fiercely. You have me. We do this together, or not at all. Tears spilled freely down her face now. Every time I let myself trust someone, I lose them. My father, now maybe my mother. I can't lose you too. Tae-jun cupped her face in both hands, forcing her to look at him. You won't. I promise you, Amahle. Whatever happens tonight, I am not leaving your side. We're closing in on the climax now. If this story has gripped you, make sure you're subscribed so you catch every future upload. Comment below. Do you think they make it out alive? Let's finish this. The warehouse sat at the edge of the Incheon docks, half swallowed by fog rolling in off the water. Amahle's heart hammered against her ribs as Tae-jun's car rolled to a stop a block away, engine cutting to silence. Stay behind me, he said, voice low and controlled, though she could see the tension coiled in his shoulders. No matter what happens in there, stay behind me. I can't promise that, she said honestly. That's my mother in there. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue further. There wasn't time. They moved through the shadows toward the loading entrance. Tae-jun's men, 6 of them, silent and armed, fanning out around the perimeter. Amahle's pulse roared in her ears as they slipped inside. The warehouse interior was dim, lit only by a single hanging bulb over a chair at the center of the room. Her mother, Namvula, sat bound but conscious, chin lifted with the same stubborn defiance Amahle had inherited, without ever realizing where it came from. Mama, Amahle breathed, starting forward. Stop right there. Director Oh's voice cut through the darkness as he stepped from the shadows, flanked by a dozen armed men. I told you to come alone, Miss Dlamini, yet here you are, with the Kang heir playing bodyguard. Let her go, Amahle said, fury steadying her fear. You have me. That's what you wanted. I want the drive. Oh corrected. You're simply the delivery method. Tae-jun stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Amahle. Let the woman go, Oh. This ends now, one way or another. Oh smiled coldly. You're right about that. He raised a hand, and his men lifted their weapons in unison. Amahle's breath caught, terror and adrenaline colliding as Tae-jun's own men mirrored the movement instantly, guns rising to meet the threat. For a suspended moment, the entire warehouse held its breath. You kill him, Oh said, nodding toward Tae-jun, and I still get what I want. You kill me, and this war spreads across every family in this city. Think carefully. I've thought about nothing else for years, Tae-jun said. You took my mother's peace. You killed her father. He nodded toward Amahle. Tonight, you lose everything you built on their suffering. Amahle's hand slipped into her jacket pocket, fingers closing around the small drive she'd kept hidden against her skin for 3 days. You want this? She called out, voice shaking but clear. Then let my mother go first, or I destroy it right here, and none of us ever see what's really on it. Oh's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Try me, Amahle said, holding his gaze despite the tremor in her hands. Long seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, Oh gestured sharply, and one of his men cut Namvula's binds, shoving her forward. She stumbled, and Tae-jun's men moved instantly to shield her, pulling her back toward the exit. "Mama, go!" Amahle urged, though every part of her wanted to run to her. "Amahle, no!" Namvula cried, but the guards were already ushering her away. The moment the doors closed behind her mother, the fragile stillness in the room shattered. "Now," Oh snarled, "the drive." "No," Amahle said. Chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked through the warehouse as Tae-jun grabbed Amahle, throwing them both behind a stack of crates as bullets tore through the space they'd occupied seconds before. She screamed, more from shock than pain, as splinters exploded around them. "Stay down!" Tae-jun shouted, returning fire with brutal precision, his men engaging O's from every angle. The firefight seemed endless, deafening, the world reduced to muzzle flashes and shouted commands. Amahle pressed herself against the crates, drive clutched to her chest, praying. Then, silence. She dared to look up. O's men lay scattered, disarmed or worse. O himself stood alone now, weapon trained shakily on Tae-jun, who had stepped into the open, gun leveled with lethal calm. "It's over, O," Tae-jun said. "Put it down. You have no idea what you've unraveled." O spat, blood trickling from a wound at his shoulder. "The people above me will bury you both. Let them try," Tae-jun said coldly. O's finger twitched on the trigger, and a single shot rang out. Amahle screamed as O crumpled to the ground, one of Tae-jun's men lowering his weapon from the shadows above. The warehouse fell into ringing silence, broken only by her own ragged breathing. Tae-jun turned immediately, crossing the distance between them in seconds, pulling her into his arms, as her legs finally gave out beneath her. "It's over," he murmured into her hair. "You're safe. Your mother's safe." She clung to him, sobbing with relief, fear, exhaustion, everything she'd carried since that first desperate sprint through the alley 3 nights ago, finally breaking free. "I thought I was going to lose everyone," she whispered. "You didn't," he said fiercely, pulling back just enough to meet her eyes. "You won't. Not while I'm breathing." She managed a trembling smile, the first real one in days. Together, outside the warehouse, dawn was breaking over Incheon's harbor, the first light in days that didn't feel like a countdown to disaster. Amahle thought of her father, the quiet man with ink-stained fingers who'd spent his life protecting a truth he never got to see resolved. Tonight, that truth was finally free. No more hidden ledgers. No more men in suits deciding who lived and who disappeared. Her mother was waiting for her at Tae-jun's penthouse, alive, shaken, but free. And for the first time since childhood, Amahle didn't feel like she was bracing for the next loss. "I used to think surviving meant staying alone," she said quietly, leaning into Tae-jun's shoulder as they walked toward the car. "Guess I was wrong." "You weren't wrong," he said. "You just hadn't met the right person to survive with yet." She laughed a real laugh, surprising even herself, and for the first time in this whole nightmare, the fear in her chest finally went quiet. If this story had you hooked from that very first line to the last, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and drop a comment telling me your favorite moment. It genuinely helps this channel grow. See you in the next story.